Associate Justice Minister Nicole McKee, who is responsible for firearms law, this morning announced the scope of the government's promise to rewrite the 4-decade-old Arms Act. The bill, which has not yet been drafted, will make numerous changes to the regulations of firearms, including prohibiting all gang members from having firearms licences. I mean, do any gang members have firearms licences as it is? Anyway. And redefining prohibited firearms as a semi-automatic rifles as restricted firearms to move away from emotive language in the law. The government will also not remove the firearms regulator from police or expand access to semi-automatic guns in its sweeping rewrite. One group that was waiting to see what the minister was going to produce was the Deerstalkers Association, and their chief exec is Gwyn Thurlow, and he's with us now. Gwyn, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good to talk this afternoon. Minister McKee, only this morning, announced her intended changes. Have you had time to go over it with a fine-tooth comb, Gwyn?
Yeah, so we got it a couple of hours ago, and it was accompanied by sort of a 17-page summary document, quite a comprehensive signal to the community on what she's intending on changing. And for the most part, it strikes a balance. So there's a lot in there in terms of, increasing penalties, cracking down on illegal use. You mentioned prohibiting gang members from getting a license. So a whole lot of common sense stuff. And what was missing, though, which some sectors of the hunting and firearms community wanted, was a repeal of the register. So the register's staying. And then obviously the full split away from police. There has to be some interplay there in order for enforcement and, vetting and allowing police to do their job. So, we think this strikes a good balance on the whole, and hopefully it can get cross-party support, because one thing we're a little bit nervous about is this being a political issue when it really should be about, communities having firearms in lawful hands and then prohibiting the wrong people from getting them. So she's striking the right balance.
Well, Gwyn, I mean, wasn't the ACT Party, they were keen on getting rid of this register, too expensive, bureaucracy, basically a shopping list for gangs. Why is it staying?
So I think that's a political decision. I know she's got to negotiate with the Prime Minister and the rest of the Cabinet. And the hunting community and the firearms community will always remember that National voted with Labor when we did that 5-day change after the terrorist attack. And so I think we're still dealing with, the views of some of the more, conservative anti-gun viewpoints in Parliament. And so Nicole is probably a lone voice in that respect. And in terms of, what Main Street think about firearms, most of them haven't held a firearm, used a firearm, and sort of can buy into the whole no gun is a good gun, kind of let's ban everything and we'll all be safer. So I think there's some compromises in this announcement today. It's not. We didn't get everything we asked for, and we also didn't get the clubs and ranges repealed that was promised to happen immediately.
Remind us of that, Gwyn.
Yeah, so one of the major campaign promises that the ACT Party did was to repeal the clubs and ranges regime, which was brought in as well. So they're quite heavily controlling and regulating all of the shooting clubs, how they operate, and shooting ranges, and that stayed. So a lot of the big pillars, like the register is still there, the clubs and ranges regime is still there. We're increasing penalties. So I don't really know, there's a lot there for the anti-gun lobby to be upset about, Leah. I think, it strikes a balance here, but the devil's going to be in the detail when we see the act.
So you said it's, there isn't a lot there, you think, for you've called them the anti-gun lobbyist to get upset about. How strong are they, Gwyn? Because, I mean, the register is staying, the clubs and ranges have been repealed, but you think that's more political than the anti-gun lobbyists themselves? You think it's more the deal with National and trying to get them on board?
Yeah, I don't think the anti-gun lobby are that effective. There's a few key personalities there. They really want to clamp down on firearms and ban them outright and shut access to them completely. So that's their perfect world. However, we've sort of walked back from the really overbearing regulatory regime that was put in place, the last government. So I actually think they won't be too upset about it. They'll always find something to complain about in this, but on the whole, all of the key pillars Nicole is still obviously working on, and no doubt she'll have to campaign on them at the next election as sort of unfinished business. So I think, from Nicole's point of view, she's made a lot of compromises in what I'm reading here today.
And again, just to go back to your association, the Deerstalkers Association, what changed massively for you, with the previous government, especially with the knee-jerk reaction after the Christchurch event massacre? How were you affected? I mean, even in this now, what the Minister McKee is putting forward, are you cheering? Is there anything that you've just gone, thank God she's done this?
So there's a lot of really good stuff. So there's the sorting out a lot of the mechanics in the background that won't be of interest to people, but she's clarifying what a fit and proper person is. So, gang members are out. She's making sure there's a robust appeals process, removing police being the decision maker and the issuer and the revoker of the license. She's bringing in, a sense of fairness and justice with the Justice Department there. So there's, rights of appeal, there's some independence. They're creating this new entity with a prohibiting police officers from working in the authority. So she's saying police will do the enforcement and the policing, and then there's going to be a separate group of people that aren't police doing the licensing. And that's something that we really welcome, because the trust was really lost from the community, and there's a big people want to comply with the law, but they also want to resist it. So one good example is the register has not gone as well as expected. There's only 100,000 people that have registered their firearms. So there's a little out of the,
out of
230,000.
how many? 230? Yeah.
Yeah, so less than 50%.
Wow.
So that's a big vote of fear of putting their information on that register. So there's a lot of the community half of the community are going to be upset with this announcement, because they did want Nicole to repeal the register. And I think, like I said, that's going to be an election issue again. She's probably going to campaign on, we only got half the job done, and if you really want the full reform, you have to vote her back in next election.
It's interesting, isn't it? Only 100,000, because she has said that these changes will rebuild trust of law-abiding firearms owners. And after what you've just said, I don't know if that's true.
I think the register's always going to be there as a concern. I mean, the other thing, going back to what was affecting our members, we do a lot of pest control, a lot of hunting. We do the National Goat Comp. And one of the sort of the points of contention was the buyback and the prohibited firearms and the semi-automatics and the black guns. And a lot of our members did use those, and they now have to apply for a pest control license. Right. And one of the really good bits I read there was they're extending the tenure of that license to 5 years, so reducing the compliance burden of annual renewals and the costs and the bureaucracy. So there is some wins in there, but I think some quarters of the firearms community won't completely be happy. So it's going to be interesting what feedback we get. What's going to happen next will be the full bill will be introduced to Parliament. And we picked, recently we sent a newsletter to our members saying it has to go this year. So there's 2 sitting weeks, there's next week and the following week.
Yeah.
And our pick is that she'll have to introduce the bill this year to get it through before electioneering starts next
Okay.
year. And she's promised 6 months consultation. On the last time we got 5 days. So she's being very generous, allowing the community to have their say on this law. So I think that's a positive, and yeah, we would encourage every New Zealander to have their say on this. It's really important.
It's goodbye to the Firearms Safety Authority, which you've touched on, and hello to a new independent, yet to be named agency with its own chief exec tasked with regulating firearms and those who use them. Why is that important? And is that a good thing?
It sort of introduces a little bit of independence and a check and balance. So the way that the current law is set up is the Firearms Authority is just a brand name within police. So the current unit, although it has a different name and logo, all the IT systems, all the personnel, everything is police, just with a different logo.
Sure.
And they've got a certain view of... Yeah, and police, we love what they do and we respect what they do, but they're not good regulators. I mean, they lost the speeding fine system recently to Transport New Zealand because of sort of the culture and the bad behaviour there. We've seen a few things recently in the way that police treat people, and they're regulating law-abiding citizens, and you don't want a presumption that they're a criminal, and at the moment that's how people feel when they're being treated by police and the FSA.
Yeah.
And that's where that sort of feeling of trust has been broken. And so I think moving it away from police and putting it into a civilian system with police enforcing the law is a smart move from Nicole. And hopefully it rebuilds that trust with the firearms community.
8 new offences, although 7 of them have been listed, says unsafe storage of firearms. Isn't that always been isn't it illegal to store your firearms unsafely? Did you see that?
It's a weird one. Yeah, there has been a few gaps. So obviously they would have always been able to revoke your firearms license, but they obviously haven't been able to charge you with an offence or give you a fine. And so obviously they're trying to maybe fine people and have a bit more of a stick there to encourage good behaviour.
Sure.
We have seen a number of people inappropriately store firearms, and one thing we do support is the safe transport, safe storage, keep your family safe, keep the community safe by locking up your firearms. So you'll get no complaints from the hunting community or Deerstalkers on, doing the right thing with storage, transport, everything like that. It's just common sense stuff to us.
Yeah. I shouldn't say this, but my dad sometimes, Gwyn, would just put his gun in the bedroom, like up against the wall. just
Yeah, that was the old days, and
back in the 70s,
we did. Yeah. I know everyone's granddad or under the bed. If there was a possum on the fruit tree, you could get it really quickly or something.
And the wardrobe. Yep.
I think now we're in a different world, and it's up to our community to actually lock these up and keep the community safe. And all we want to do is we'll do those steps so that we can, shoot competitively, get food, go hunting, duck shooting, all the good stuff that you can do with firearms.
Yeah.
And we welcome all that. So, it's just another example of a good change Nicole's making, and that's why I think the anti-gun lobby might be slightly pleasantly surprised about what they're reading here today too.
Good stuff. Gwyn, always a pleasure. I appreciate your time. That is Gwyn Thurlow, the Deerstalkers Association CEO. It was nice.